There was no creepiness at the time, just a genuine concern for what my grandmother could possibly be doing up at 3 a.m. when she was literally days away from dying. Maybe the doctors got it wrong, because sometimes, you know how like they'll give people a certain amount of, months or whatever to live, and sometimes people just live past that. So, I could be wrong. They don't really have the last say. Sometimes. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you didn't already know, act like you know, because it's that as well. So let's hop right into this video. So today I want to do Reddit disturbing stories part 9, but before we hop in, don't forget to subscribe and like and comment. If you want to wait to like and comment until the end of the video, that's fine too, but without further ado, let's just hop right into this video. I forgot, like, they don't have titles, so this is story number 15. Yeah. Anyways, just by glancing at the sentences, it talks about cancer. So if you are affected, or somebody that you know is affected by cancer, and it's a tough subject for you, you should probably click off or go to the next story. I always seem to get these threads when my story will surely be buried, but here it goes. When I was 13, my grandmother was dying of cancer, and my mother and I stayed at her house to take care of her during her last few weeks. One night at 3 or so in the morning, my mother ran into my room and told me that my grandmother, who was by this time completely bedridden, entered my mother's room, woke her up, and then walked out of the room. Oh, hell no. I would have told her, where the hell do you think you're going? Because the way I would be bewildered, I would be so terrified. My heart would have burst out of my chest. That's how scared I would have been. Because she's not supposed to be up. She's sick and dying. Also, I'm reading this off of my laptop, so that's why I'm looking over here. There was no creepiness at the time, just a genuine concern for what my grandmother could possibly be doing up at 3 a.m. when she was literally days away from dying. Maybe the doctors got it wrong, because sometimes, you know how like they'll give people a certain amount of, months or whatever to live, and sometimes people just live past that. So, I could be wrong. They don't really have the last say. Sometimes. We ran into her room, and sure enough, she had passed away. What? Maybe that was her ghost. Obviously, given the shock of my grandmother dying, my mother and I didn't sit around chatting about how weird the whole experience was, but months or perhaps even years later, I asked her about that night, and she has no memory of telling me that my grandmother was up and walking around the house. She doesn't even remember what woke her up and why she woke up. Gives me shivers just writing. Hell no. That's actually pretty terrifying. Like, that could have possibly been her ghost that like was just, I want to be next to my daughter one last time, type deal. Why do I look yellow? Anyways, moving on. Let me know what y'all think about this story down below. Do y'all think it was her ghost, or y'all think it was really the grandmother and then she just laid down and died? So this is story number 16. So my uncle used to work a lot when I was younger. He's done a lot of different things to make money, but one consistent thing that is in the summer months and into the fall, he paints houses. It's a legitimate business and everything. I would hope so. Or the IRS is coming for that ass, for the taxes, unpaid taxes. He's got a truck with a number and a name and supplies in the back. I love how like they're trying to prove that it's a legitimate company. Like, baby, we believe you. I believe you. I am not part of the government. I'm not a part of the feds, sweetie. Like, I'm not gonna come after you. Every now and then, he would call my dad, and when he needed a little extra help, and I'd work for him. No big deal. Really, it's just painting houses. Sorry, I couldn't see. I need glasses. And I'm not even joking. I laugh it off though. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it takes a while to paint a whole house. I would think, unless you just chuck that shit on it. If the weather conditions aren't right, then you can't paint. One particular fall was extremely wet. It rained. It rained what felt like every single day. My uncle would paint multiple houses at a time, so sometimes he would get caught up due to situations like these, and I'd work a little more than usual. That was fine by me though. Okay, let's get to the butter. Like, what's scary about this? The job wasn't hard and it paid well. Anyway, it was a warm day for a late fall, but there was still a distinct chill in the air. Okay, setting us up for the creepiness. One that kind of penetrated through you and stung your soul. My uncle had this job he had to finish. It was an old Victorian house in a quiet part of town. It's always the old Victorian houses. Stay away. Stay away. Ugh. A lady and her husband, who was an author, lived there. Due to the weather, it had taken longer than expected to paint the house, and there were family issues going on at the time, which further complicated things. So my uncle gets this call one day from a lady who lives at the house. She says that her husband is trying to write his next book, but he keeps getting distracted by the scaffolding outside the house. So she wanted to know if he would come over and finish the jobs as soon as possible. My uncle was always an honest businessman. What does that have to do with what we just talked about? They had contracted him to do the job in midsummer, but he had lots of jobs that summer, and the wet conditions I mentioned above made it difficult to finish anything. However, these people were insistent but really polite and not wanting to lose customers or get a bad recommendation. My uncle decided to put the house as high priority. After all, it would only take one day to finish. Okay, Speedy Gonzalez. So we show up to the house mid-afternoon. Like I said, it was a weird kind of chilly day, and I also remember a really eerie calm. Okay, so the day was slightly overcast, so everything was shrouded in gray. It was like the perfect setting for a mystery crime novel. So we arrive at the house, and my uncle and I moved to the back. The front of the house was already done, so there was nothing left there. This is dragging out. This person is really setting it up. My uncle, being the more experienced painter, would always do the touch-ups, and I would simply apply the first coats since they took a little skill. Anyway, we get to the back of the house, and he asked me if I'm scared of heights. I was 17 at the time, and although they do creep me out a little, I didn't want to seem childish in front of my uncle. So I told him I wasn't. Why would you lie? It's your uncle. Who gives a fuck? He was happy to hear that. He has me climb up on the scaffold to the third floor to finish an upper section of the house, and there was a window up there, a small little oval one that looked into the attic. The attic also happened to be the husband's study. He would do most of the writing in there. So I'm climbing up the scaffolding, cans of paint dangling behind me, and various paintbrushes. I get to the top of the scaffolding and set all my supplies down. I crack open a can of paint and start painting like I had a few hundred times before. Outside, the temperature, the overcast, and the eerie calm, this day was like any other. I'm working my way across the top part of the house when I get to the window that looks into the study. I bend down, dip my paintbrush, and stand back up to paint above the window. The window was in my direct line of sight, and I couldn't help gazing in. I see a man, the husband, staring back at me with a face completely barren of any emotion. What the freak? I had never seen a face so devoid of feeling before. I still haven't. Of course, I get startled and take a step back. I chuckle and smile at the guy, but he doesn't smile back. What if he's like being held there, hostage? Instead, while remaining completely emotionless, he draws a pistol up to his head that he's holding in his hand, and the whole time it proceeds to blow his brains out. You are lying. What? without ever breaking eye contact right in front of me while I'm staring at him. I'm in utter shock. I gasp and let out the smallest scream as I step back in fear. Only I stepped back a step too much and fell off the scaffolding. Alerted by the gunshot, my uncle looked up and I just, what? Hold the freak on. I gotta scroll. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is so creepy. My uncle looked up in just enough time to see me falling off the scaffolding on the 3rd story. Don't tell me he caught you. I was lucky enough to land in the bush and only suffered a broken ankle and a few scratches. The biggest wounds happened in my head. I had to go to get counseling for a while. It's been years since then, and I still remember that man's face. I've never forgotten it. It will always be burned in the back of my head. I know why, looking back, his face was so devoid of emotion, because he never felt any emotion at all. He literally didn't care about what he was doing. Well, you don't know that. He could have been suffering from some type of mental illness or driven mad by literally being in an attic with like no sun and like writing all day. But anyways, guys, let me know what you guys thought about these stories down below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. My uncle would paint multiple houses at a time. So sometimes he would get caught up. I'm so sorry. Gotta read this.